everybody. I am Dr. Cindy, a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and your host of the Positively Altered podcast. So it's interesting. Today's guest is going to be somebody very special, and we're going to touch on a bunch of different topics. But I have a question a burning question that I really want answered. He's had some involvement with Dollar General, and I want to know when Dollar General went to like $1.25 General. I'm actually having a really hard time with that. Anybody out there also having a hard time with that? Anyway, today we're going to talk about something called emotional intelligence and how diversity can play a role in that. And oh boy, big surprises, lots of things going on in today's podcast. You're not going to want to miss this. So grab drink of choice, pull over on the side of the road if you can't do two things at once, or grab that comfy chair. We're going to be right back after a listen to a couple sponsors because they're very important to me with my next guest. Don't leave.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back to the Positively Altered podcast. I am super excited to introduce you all to David Brzozowski. And I will tell you that his name doesn't sound like it's spelled. And I'm going to put him on the spot today to say it the way it's intended. David, before I give a little info about you, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, all right, say the name correctly.
Okay, so in Polish, you would say Brzozowski.
Oh my God, that's so gorgeous. Isn't that gorgeous, everybody? I like butchered it. It's the American way is just not half as good as the Polish way. So thank you for sharing the beautiful rendition of your last name. David is the Senior Director of Training and Program Delivery at Talent Smart EQ. He offers over 20 years of experience in leadership development, onboarding, facilitation, diversity and inclusion, emotional intelligence, personality assessments, and organizational development. David, I'm exhausted just thinking about how much you do. All right. He's an executive coach for Talent Smart. He works with C-suite leaders globally. And if that's not enough, he also hosts his own podcast called Talent Smart EQ's Emotional Intelligence for Your Everyday Life on the popular monthly LinkedIn Live series. David, you do a lot.
I mean, I have a couple of hours left in the day, but that's why I'm here.
So what do you do with the couple hours that are left? How do you have some fun, or is all of this just your fun?
It's all fun, but I also have a great dog that when I'm done with the day, I get to have fun with her. And so, yeah, I do a lot of stuff for fun. Life is about having fun. That's what I say.
It is about having fun. So, I have to admit, I'm not a jealous kind of person, but sometimes I get a little envious. You've lived a little bit of my dream. You ventured off to New York
Mm.
from somewhere else to be a stage actor, yes?
Yes, yes, I did. That was your dream? I love that.
Well, actually, to be a dancer, I'm not a very good actress, but I
Okay.
wanted to be a dancer in New York City, and I didn't have enough, self-esteem and guts to do it at the time. I should have done it.
Yeah.
But tell me about that because I'm guessing that was a pretty important transition to what you're doing now.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of came from a place where even though I had always dabbled for fun in school, in acting, I was having a retail career, very successful. But I'll tell you what, retail back in the 1980s and early 1990s was exhausting, and I got really burnt out. And so I made a decision. I happened to I was living in Philadelphia at the time, and I ended up doing a show. I auditioned for a show, and I got this part, and it was very fun. I played um, a Latino houseboy. And so I had long hair at the time. I was able to tan like nobody's business. And so I came off looking ethnic. And so I got this part and I got rave reviews and I was like, could I do this? And so I'm a very planful person. I made a decision that I was going to go to New York because I was burnt out from my other job. So I changed retail jobs so I could get transferred to New York City. So I would have a job when I got there. So it took me almost a year to get me there, but it was the planfulness that kind of got me. And I will just say that going to New York and throwing caution to the wind, I was in my early 30s to do this. So that's a little late for people to usually say, I'm going to go and be an actor, right? And I got there and I was working this job, doing all the things that you need to do, like go to an acting class. I found a voice coach because I could sing, but I'm not like this amazing singer. I'm more of a character singer. And within about 6 months, I got my very first professional gig. So that was pretty exciting. And I went on a national tour of, are you ready? Babes in Toyland. And I played the curmudgeon Barnaby Boomble. He was like the mean guy who gets hit on the head with an apple at the end and becomes a really nice guy. But it was literally 30 years ago as we're speaking. I was on tour 30 years ago. And so that was the beginning of that. And I realized that I kind of had a natural, I always knew I was funny. And I knew I could sing. And the dancing part, I probably could have used you in New York with me to help me because I needed to take dance lessons just to be able to kind of look coordinated, right? But I did that for almost 15 years. Mostly lived in New York, did a little bit whenever I did bi-coastal for a while. I had an apartment out in LA and I did a little bit of like film and TV, but most of my work was all on stage, singing and acting. And it was an amazing 15 years of my life. And then all of a sudden, it became more business than show in the show business, right? And I'm very realistic as well. And I was like, all right, so before I can't do something else, I should probably transition to the next stage of life, which was now going into learning and development. And so that's happened not quite 20 years ago. I moved back home to Pittsburgh, which is where I'm from and where I live now. And and then got into this crazy world of learning and development. But it was kind of a nice, you kind of said this, it was a nice transition. It's still my stage.
Mhm.
I still get to facilitate classes. Sometimes it's 12 people, but sometimes it's 100. And I'll do keynote addresses as well. And I get to use a lot of that confidence like on stage in what I do now and do things like this and be able to talk to people about, I think, what makes a difference in people's lives too. But I will say, I am so happy that I took that chance to go to New York because there was nothing like it. Nothing like it. It was great.
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, maybe in my next life or when I'm 80, I'll go
It's
dance
never too late. It's never too late.
inappropriately on some stage in New York just so that, I can say I've done it. And now I'm envious twice because I'm a pasty white girl, David. So I don't tan easily and could never pull
It's
off the
great
Latino
stuff in a
role
bottle.
under
Great
any
stuff in a bottle.
circumstances ever. So in this New Jersey, you're in Pittsburgh. You did tell me it was Pittsburgh,
I
not
lived in New Jersey at one point, so
Oh,
you're okay.
see, I knew something I didn't know. In this new adventure, right, and transition, something that's really passionate for you, right, is this whole idea of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to your definition, your take on what does that really mean? Because I think a lot of us we throw that around, but I'm not
Yeah.
so sure we use it correctly.
Yeah, great. It's a great question. So I just celebrated my 4th year here at Talent Smart, and it was interesting because I started with a company in the pandemic. I had been, a director of learning and development in a corporate world, and like many people in that field in 2020, lost their jobs because of the pandemic.
Mm.
And so this job happened almost kind of out of luck. It was our company is based on the West Coast, but I'm in Pittsburgh, and they needed to have somebody that could do early morning classes, like for East. So they looked for somebody east of the Mississippi, and that was me. And so emotional intelligence for me, I knew a little bit about it from reading the book that our company was the proud author of, but I kept trying to understand how it fit into like just life, right? In people's lives, not just in work. So we look at emotional intelligence as your ability to a couple of things: recognize and understand the emotions you're having. But probably the biggest part that I've seen makes a difference is then using that awareness to be able to manage yourself. Because we all probably say things, and after we're done saying them, like whenever we are emotionally charged, we'll say, like, did I just say that out loud? I meant to keep that in. And emotional intelligence helps you to figure out, how do I figure out the emotions that are getting in my way sometimes? And how do I use them to the best of my ability, so that way I continue to not be that person that people say, oh gosh, he's going to get emotional again, so let's give him space. But emotional intelligence for me, in the 4 years I've been here, gosh, I have seen people have such aha moments, not just at work with emotional intelligence, but in their personal lives too. And for me, that's the beauty of the journey, is that emotional intelligence is in every aspect of your life: work, home, whether you do outside, gigs, like you're maybe on the church board, or you coach your kids' sports teams, or any of that stuff. Um, it's why I've stayed here now for 4 years, and probably will retire here, because it is a life-changing skill that everybody can benefit.
So it's not to suppress emotions, right? And I think sometimes people
Correct.
feel that they have to change who they are or react emotionally differently, but it's really about how to use that for personal growth,
Yeah.
right?
That's
And
and I'm
and
so glad
honor
you
the
said it that way.
emotion.
Yeah, because it is so not about suppressing emotions. It's like we all have emotions. Everybody does. And it's actually unhealthy to suppress emotions. It's about how to express them in the best way to be effective, right? Because there are some people that we probably all know who are very emotional all the time. And those individuals probably don't come off the way they would like to when they're expressing those emotions. So, emotional intelligence can help you express them a little bit differently, help you manage them within yourself, for whatever reason you might want that. It might be you're an emotional person at home, and maybe your kids are not listening to anything that you're trying to talk about. So it's, how do I maybe manage that to be better for them, and so that you show up in the way that you really would like to show up. And so that, I think that's the biggest part. Like, that's such a smart thing to say it that way, the way you said that, Dr. Cindy, is that it is not suppressing emotions, it's actually taking those emotions and doing something with them.
And where do you think the line is between I'm going to be who I am and that's your problem to deal
Yeah.
with my emotions versus I would love that feedback to know, am I getting across what I'm trying to get across in a loving, productive, kind way? Where is that line? Because I do think a lot of us struggle with that too. Of look, your problem, right? I'm going to be me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think people misconstrue being your true authentic self doesn't mean that you have to spew your emotions out on the table all the time. I think people can still express their emotions, but in an effective way. So I love using the word being effective, right? And because if I'm expressing my emotions loudly, maybe in a way that people just are not listening, then am I really helping myself? Like, if I want people to get that this is how I think and believe, uh, not every time that you yell it are people going to pay attention to you. So you decide, do I want them to hear me? And so, how do I make sure it comes out in a way that people will hear me? Because I do agree with you. There are people that are like, this is who you get. but you can still get full, authentic David, Dr. Cindy, or you get full, but in a way that people will want to hear what you have to say. And I think back to the days, I come from a very emotional family. Besides Polish, my mother's side is Italian. So we're like emotional everywhere. And I can still remember sitting in rooms like during the holidays, especially when our family would just be yelling at each other. And I was like, is anybody even listening to each other? And I saw, now I see, like, wow, if I could have actually taught them emotional intelligence, maybe we would have more productive conversations. But that is, I think, the biggest thing is like, how do I want to show up? And if I want to show up loud and not able to be understood, you can. But what's your purpose for that? I think that's the thing for yourself is you've got to figure out, do I really want them to hear what I'm trying to talk about here?
It's interesting, and I'll admit out loud to, you in the audience that sometimes, oh, I love to barrel into a room loud, and you know what I want? I just wanna be seen,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes I just want that validation of like, "I'm here, acknowledge me," right? I don't get too much more out of that, David.
Yeah, that's true. But sometimes it feels good, right, to do that.
Mhm.
It is usually within about 5 minutes that you're like, "Oh, that didn't go over really well, did it?" Like, and then you can't take it back. That's the part of it. It's like, I can't go back, like, "Pull the words back, please." Like, it just doesn't work that way. But, yeah, and I think that that's the part of what emotional intelligence does, is it allows you to rethink, "That didn't work very well. If I had that to do over, what would it look like and sound like?"
Right. Now you hit on something really important to me, and you mentioned, the power, the meaning of words, and you say you never use the word never, and I'll tell you, I
Mm,
don't like the word never, and I actually don't even like the word always.
yeah.
That sort of definitive of like 100%, I think gets us into trouble. What does that mean for you that you don't like the word never?
Yeah, that's such a great question because it's so funny for us to say never use the word never, right?
Yeah,
So but it's a trick.
I stand
That came,
corrected, David. You're correct.
that's,
You will always be right when you call me out on that.
but I will say for me, it started as a young age. So we'll make a therapy session really quick here. So
Okay.
I mean, when I was young, I grew up in a household where we did not have a whole heck of a lot of money, and like we lived in a 2-bedroom household. I had 3 siblings, one of which was a girl, and the 4 of us grew up in one bedroom. And so not having a whole lot of money at the time, I will say that I never knew that. As I got older, as the oldest of the 4 children, got to see what my mom had been doing behind the scenes to not make it look like we kind of sometimes were not making ends meet. And just to see my mom go through that, it was, she is the one where she never said, "You can't have that." No, we're not able to do this. But she would figure out a way. And as I got older, I just really respected that. And then for me going through my journey, in school, I mean, I didn't always have it easy. I grew up in a super conservative area. I happened to be gay, but wasn't able to come out gay. And so I was in this situation as well of living in a household that we didn't make a whole lot of money, but also being a kid who wasn't his true authentic self yet. And as I got a little older and started, opening my own doors, if you will, it allowed me to start saying, well, you can't ever say never. So hence the whole idea of me going for an acting career. I mean, there were people that looked at me like they wanted to put me in a straitjacket. They're like, "Are you kidding me? You have a really nice career going on. You're in your 30s. You are crazy." And I was like, "Yeah, and I'm going for it." Like didn't ever want to have this idea of that. And so I've taught myself that also not saying never allowed me to do all these things. When I applied for this job, I will just say that the job description did ask for a PhD and at least a master's. I have neither, and I said, I'm I'm good as somebody who would have those, and I got the job. And so that's part of my never say never is if you know what your worth is and you put yourself in the situation, you at least get to speak your case and see what happens.
So there's these worldly restrictions that somebody somewhere came up with. I'm not sure who created these rules, right? There's this enigma out there of they. Have you heard of they? They said
Yes,
they, right? Okay, I'm still trying to find they.
I agree
Um,
with you.
haven't met them yet. but I think it's interesting, it reminds me of a story in high school, and I'm of a similar generation of you. We had a very dear friend that we knew was gay, and 20 years later, he made the announcement. And we all went, "We know," like thanks, but we knew.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of restrictions, right? Back a couple decades ago, where and I think there's still struggle, right? I think in today's environment, we say that we're all loving and kind and welcoming, but I'm not so sure that that's really the case. And I imagine, in all of your work that you do, besides the emotional intelligence, diversity, equity, inclusion, and I think there's more letters now that go behind that, has become equally important in our journey. And I'd love to just let you ramble on a little bit about what you find out there in the community and where the challenges are, and really how do we just become better humans to overcome that.
Yeah, I love how you just said that, because we have come on a journey as humans to say, there was a portion of time when we kept saying, oh, diversity, equity, inclusion everywhere has to, but I don't think people understood what that meant. And in my journey, as an advocate in the LGBTQ plus, so we'll go with that those long streams. For me, when I was younger, it was LGB, and then we've added everything onto that. And respectfully, it is about, I feel, the diversity in thoughts, like what people bring to the table. So even though for the gay world, coming out as our true authentic selves is helpful, first of all, for the individual. So first and foremost, that's what that is about for me. But then it helps anybody else that's in your world. So I think about at work. I didn't come out at work really until a little less than 20 years ago, because I never felt safe enough to do that, even as an actor, because you pigeonhole yourself. So I would not come into the room, into an audition, and I tried to kind of keep that on the side, if at all possible. But even in the corporate world, once I left acting, I learned by watching that not everybody was interested in knowing that I was gay. It's interesting for the other things that we think about from diversity, right? I mean, you can't hide that you are Latino or Black or Asian or female. So the one that's kind of hidden is myself as a gay man, usually for lesbians as well, and a lot of times for bisexuals as well. We don't wear signs. But where I always see that it makes a big difference is, what is it in those conversations that I learn that's different than what I know? So I always think about in the corporate world that it would be great to have different thoughts at the table. But how you get different thoughts is by different experiences. And different experiences come from being a Black man or a Black woman, or by being a woman, or being a gay man, or being Asian. I mean, I could go down, right? Like the entire list. And it's not about having what you bring to the table always used, but I feel that it's about, how do we just talk about it and say, wow, that's an interesting perspective. I didn't think about it that way before. And just give you a really quick example. A couple of companies ago, I worked, it was a big retail. Well, actually, you mentioned Dollar General. I worked for Dollar General. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And yes, well, we can talk about the $1.25 at another time, right?
It's really upsetting, David. It doesn't meet the marketing anymore. It's not
Yeah,
right. Not
I
right.
hear. But when I worked at Dollar General, that's where I came out as a gay man, and I started the first resource group for the LGBT community at Dollar General. They're based in Tennessee, pretty conservative area as well. And I kind of stepped out and said, "All right, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it." And what our group was able to do was have conversations with different aspects of the organization to give them a different thought process about how we even market it. So this is going back a ways when I worked there, but I can still remember this one time where we had a store in a very highly populated LGBT area, and it was mainly gay men. Well, the store didn't always do very well, but it's because it wasn't marketing itself to the community. And what I mean marketing, like their front windows, whenever they were having things on sale that really were more for women, the guys weren't going in there. So one of the conversations we had was just knowing your audience. And
Right.
they did some testing. This is going back, like I said, years ago. And they realized that when they marketed to the people who lived there, and they would only get that from us because I knew the area that was a very highly populated gay male area, the numbers changed dramatically, because now they had intel about, what do these guys want to see in the window, like what within reason, about what would attract this? And that's in any demographic. So you could look at that from if a store was merchandising something and there was just men living somewhere, you're not going to put female products in the front, or vice versa. Women aren't going into a store by the droves if you're just showing what the male population would want to purchase. So I think about, if at the table are not diverse thoughts, you're missing out on the opportunity to just hear what might help you. And in a retail organization, gosh, that is so important. But I just think in any company, we're in almost 2025, which is kind of crazy, right?
Right.
And if we don't at least start listening to each other a little bit more about like why I think this way, my lived experience is different than yours. My lived experience is different than many people that I work with. And just to understand that, there's this great phrase that we say, stepping into your shoes, just to understand. And the beauty of that, as I talk about it in a lot of the classes that I facilitate, is not stepping into your shoes to agree with you, but it's stepping into your shoes to understand where you're coming from. I can step back out of them and say, wow, I get it. Still don't agree, but at least I know where you're coming from. And diversity, equity, inclusion to me allows people to start being a little bit more empathetic in our lives. And we could all use a little empathy, not sympathy, empathy. We could all use that much, much more. So that's where I think for me, and that's why I continue to work in that area anytime I can, because I do think it's helped to educate people on what that really does mean.
So I would love to be the ruler of the universe, and I think we should run on a ticket together, because I agree that it's not about getting people to think like you think. It's about the
Yeah,
understanding and the appreciation, and actually sometimes even the disagreement, which is healthy, right? It's healthy.
100%.
So I had an interesting experience I'd love to just share. It's a little different in terms of the context, but I think I can relate. And that is, I was raised on the North Shore of Chicago, and a Jewish girl. There were quite a few Jewish families on the North Shore. But
Yeah.
now I live in the Southwest suburbs, and I always joke that there's 9, maybe 10 of us down here. And Hanukkah's not necessarily one of our most important holidays. It falls around Christmas time. So it gets a lot of media attention because of the time of the year. And it's very interesting because I will walk into a lot of stores, and there, of course, is Christmas gift wrapping paper and toys geared for Christmas and plates with trees on it. And, I look for the one bag that maybe is blue or gold because, somebody somewhere, their
Mhm.
favorite color during Christmas is actually blue or gold, in order to wrap my Hanukkah gifts in. And it's fascinating because the emotional component of that for me, to your point, is I don't live in a community where there are a lot of Jewish people. So the stores are not going to stock all their shelves because they're not going to sell it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also very appreciative of the handful of stores that do have a very tiny shelf section, area to honor those of us that do choose to celebrate differently, and where it's important. So I do think what's fascinating for me, and again, listen, white girl, okay, I do have the minority being Jewish, and I've been a victim of some of that discrimination as well. So, on a little level, I can relate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also don't want it to go so far to the other side that we forget everybody else, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's where we lose sight, is that at the end of the day, we're all just human beings, right? We're all just good people trying to find our path in life, being authentic. And I don't want to disregard anybody, whether you fit into that alphabet soup label, right? That we can joke
Right.
about because it's constantly changing so that we can encompass a
Yeah.
greater umbrella of people, or just, maintain the title of human and treat each other as such. So, I applaud people in this space that teach all of us to be kind and to recognize and not judge, and yet agree to disagree, because it's actually kind of fun to debate, really.
Yeah, agreed, right? And I love that how you just said that. I mean, it's for me, it's about how do we just continue to respect each other, have empathy for each other. I don't have to do anything specific for you, but just hear you out so I understand your point of view. Boy, we could have used that during the entire election campaign, no matter what side you're on, if people would have just opened up empathetic ears to hear it and then ask some qualifying questions, which is difficult in that heatedness. But I think that is a big part of where I think this could help us. So I hope that if we move, as we move forward as humans, especially here in the United States, how do we start being more empathetic and say, help me understand that from your point of view. Tell me
Right.
a little bit more about why you think that way. And then drop it. Like, I mean, you can get into the debate, but you could also choose not to get into debate if you're afraid it's going to get fiery, and just say, thanks for sharing that. I had not heard that way before. I mean, that's what I hope for people. My family, we're very mixed with that. And so I'm hoping that as we go into the holidays, that we're able to have those just conversations that are about like, okay, let's agree to disagree, and then let's eat some more turkey.
Right. Right. I think the level of respect has been lost in this country, truly,
Yeah.
as a general statement. And it's interesting. I have 3 kids, and quite a few years ago, my youngest son was involved in a mock election in school, right? And, judge if that's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But he came home and he was very upset because his candidate lost.
Oh,
And he had said something a little derogatory toward, the candidate that won. And I said, look, I said, you don't have to and again, listen, I don't know any of the candidates personally, right? At the end of the day, I've never met them. So I don't have to like anybody. That is a personal choice. But my advice to him is the president of the United States is an office we should respect, just as any other position or person, right, on this planet.
yeah.
Disagree all you want. Be disappointed that your candidate didn't win, right? Like, absolutely, I would expect people to be that passionate, but
Mhm.
still respect the person, right? Respect the person and the position in a way that we can move forward. And I would love for that message just to continue, because I think that's where we're really hurting,
I
and it's causing a lot
agreed.
of pain.
Yeah, and the other part of that is, and don't think what's going to happen when we don't know yet. Like there's a lot of promises, but I also know that promises in elections are often not all kept, no matter who the candidates were that won.
Right.
So it's like, how about if we wait and we get there and see what happens, and then go ahead and maybe have some conversations about what is happening when it's happening. So that's kind of
Right.
where I try to be in that positive frame of mind to say, listen, I'm not willing to go down that road until we need to get there.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I know we're headed down a rabbit hole that's dangerous here. And if this was a live show, there'd probably be the phones lighting up, with a whole bunch of opinions. And I love the idea of live. So let's get off this topic before it goes too deep, and let's talk about your experience on LinkedIn Live. What is that all about? What jazzes you about that?
Yeah, thanks for asking about. So we've been doing this for a little over 2.5 years now, once a month. And what's cool is it really for me has been showing people where emotional intelligence fits, which is everywhere in your life. And so that's why it's called emotional intelligence for your everyday life. You can apply it no matter where. So I have usually a guest that's internal from our company, kind of as my SME, if you will, my subject matter expert. And then we bring other individuals in from other companies or people who have either worked with us or people who just have this vision of emotional intelligence being a positive part of their life. And we talk about how it actually is playing out, whether it's in different segments of clients. So, for instance, healthcare, law enforcement, military, education, to see it play out in all these different areas and to see how that can, I think that is what has made people love listening and watching the show, is people get to see it from a different angle every single month.
That's really fun. When are you live? When can we check you out?
So we have Thursdays. I can't remember what's the time. I think we just changed the time. It's going to be noon Eastern time, but it's the fourth Thursday of every month.
Awesome. All right.
Yes,
And at the end, we're going to give more information how everybody likes and follows you. Now, you
perfect.
mentioned in some of our pre-gaming here, that this is going to be your forever home. Yes?
Yes, I think it absolutely is. I mean, I have not a few more years until I retire. I mean, it's kind of like up to me, right? And I love what I do. I mean, it's so amazing what people get out of this. And so I've always been about like wanting to change people's lives, whatever that meant. So when I was an actor, it was about making people, enjoy either the comedy or the singing, or when I did a dramatic role, if I heard somebody sniffle because I made them cry, that it was a moment in their life that I like. And so for me, that's what this has become. It has been this journey that I know that people have ahas that are about everything in their life. I've had people say to me afterwards, I think that you just saved my marriage. Twice I had this. I didn't do it. Emotional intelligence did. I led you to the conversation, but I had a woman who literally was in tears at the end. I thought, what happened? And we had this lovely conversation about when she was realizing where she had not thought beforehand that she had a hand in this. And I thought, I'm sure her company is happy about that, but they brought her there for company expectation of where to use EQ. She walked out of there with something much bigger, with a renewed look at her marriage. And that's just one of those examples. And so that's why I think this is my forever home, because there's nothing better than being able to do what you do, get paid for it, and change people's lives, or make people walk out of a classroom or a one-on-one session and say, wow, that really helped me.
So
That's
this is a great message for everybody. If you don't love what you're doing, do something different.
100%. Absolutely. There's enough stuff out there for you to figure out what are you passionate about. That was the never say never for me as well. I
Okay.
never wanted to do something that I didn't love. And so here I am, and I still love everything that I do.
So you're only stuck if you want to be stuck, David.
Agreed. Yeah. That's a great way of saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's a choice. Oh my gosh, you are just such a treat. I love this conversation. We could go down this rabbit hole forever, but we're not going to. So we're going to take a quick break, listen to our sponsors, and then I'm excited to come back because I'm going to just ask you some fun questions just to learn a little bit more about you and see what we come up with. You up for that?
Sounds good. I
Love
love
it. We'll be right back. Take a quick listen to our sponsors. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop. Hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. As always, we are back for one of my favorite parts of the conversation called the rapid fire questions, which, as we have learned, are never that rapid because I always want to learn more with the answers. So, however long it takes us, David, that's how long it's going to take us. But I'm going to shoot a few at you. Let's see what you got. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. As the ruler of the universe, who would you trust to drive your chariot?
Wow. That's a great question. Who would I trust to drive my chariot? I think it would be somebody's going in the right direction. So here's what I would say. So the first person that popped in my head, Pete Buttigieg, which sounds weird, right? But he's the Secretary of Transportation.
Oh,
And I'm a huge fan of his, not just because he is gay and I am gay, but because when I listen to that man, I am so impressed with how he speaks about things. And since he is the Secretary of Transportation, why not have that man drive my chariot?
I think that's a brilliant answer.
Thank you.
It was very thoughtful. Okay, next question. If you could have any animal except for the obvious that is a typical, pet, what
Yep.
animal would you domesticate in order to bring into your home?
Mm. Um, okay, I'm going to go with the first thing that popped in my head. A giraffe. And here's why. So I'm not super tall. I'm not short, but I'm not super tall. And I have some high things in my house that I have to always get things to climb on. I could maybe slide up the giraffe's neck or teach it to just get it for me because, like, they're tall. They're gorgeous too. I think that when I go to the zoo, it is the thing I'm most excited to see is a giraffe because I just find them beautiful to look at and see their spots, like how they are formed on them. But I just love their tallness. Like they stand out above everything. I also have a light outside that needs change so badly. It has not been changed for the past 6 months. And so I think that could be helpful too. But because of the height and how beautiful they are.
Okay, so if anybody out there is super tall and you just happen to be in David's neighborhood, would you please send us a message so we can get him some help for his outdoor
That would be
light?
so helpful.
I think that would be great. Now, I have to tell you something funny, and my kids make fun of me all the time because I actually love animals, and I like the types of like parks where you can just drive through and you see them in their natural
Oh, yeah.
habitat. And every time I see a giraffe, I have to tell the kids the same thing over and over. Now, this is the chiropractor in me. Fun fact, did you know that giraffes have the same number of cervical vertebrae or bones in their neck as a human does?
Wow, that is fascinating.
Truth, they're just really, really
You
long.
just really I was gonna say, how is that possible? Wow.
They're just really long. And I tell them all the time. So, like, if they're ever on Jeopardy and that question is asked, it's probably going to
They
be the
better
only
get it
one they
right.
get right. Yeah,
I'm
probably.
gonna use that too in my back pocket in case I get on Jeopardy.
Please, it is yours for the taking. I'm happy to share. Good information needs to be passed along.
Agreed.
Absolutely. All right. You know how you have to change a password every now and then on a computer
Mm,
and they make you do
mm.
that? If you had to change your name, what would you change it to?
Ooh. So I when I was an actor, I changed it slightly, and it was kind of cool. So I kept David, but I spelled it differently because there was already a David. So I used. It's a fun story about my mom. My mom said I was very active whenever she was pregnant with me, and she thought I was going to be an actor. Like, no, this is no lie. So she named me David Dean because Brzozowski is such a long name, and her maiden name was only 4 letters. So she wanted to help me and my brothers and sisters. So I was David Dean, but when I went to get my professional card, my equity card, after I did the Babes in Toyland, I went to use David Dean, and they said, "Sorry, there is a David Dean already." So I changed the spelling, and instead of an I, it became a Y. So David and Dean. And I thought it was the coolest name, David Dean with a Y, David with a Y. So I don't know that I would change it any more dramatically. That was pretty fun. But I think if I had to go another name, I've always loved the name Josh. I
I
don't
didn't
know
see
why.
that coming at all from your
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, I don't know where, but like if I was going to just change the actual name, not the spelling, and it wouldn't be Joshua, it would be Josh. I just always found that to be just a really cool name. I don't know, short, simple, and cool. I know some cool people named Josh too, by the way. So
Isn't that interesting? I have some favorite names that have become less of my favorite name because I don't like the people who are named that.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah,
Yeah, a couple got ruined for me pretty big time. We'll save
yeah.
those stories for another day, but that's okay. All right, last but not least, if there was only one food on this planet you could eat for the rest of your life, what would you pick?
Ooh. I think because I lived in New York for so long, it would be pizza.
You did not just say that to a Chicago girl. You didn't.
So I'm going to tell you, I have enjoyed some deep dish pizza from Chicago, but it's extra filling. I mean, that pizza, that's heavy.
David. David, we were doing so good on this whole program until you went there. I need you to take that statement back
That
and
did
pick a
pop out
different
of my
food.
head after I was like Chicago and pizza. Yeah, yeah. Have you had New York pizza?
I have. Well, okay, let me preface this though. I haven't eaten real pizza in a long time because I don't do dairy and I don't do gluten. So,
Ah,
I do
okay.
my own made up pizza. But back in the day when I used to eat it, I actually love New York. I used to go to New York all the time just for a day
Yeah.
or for a weekend. But no, I'm sorry. I'm going to respectfully disagree with you.
Okay.
I hear
Listen, when I go
you.
back
I'm
to New York,
practicing my DEI. I hear you, but I respectfully disagree with you.
I hear you, and I do hear you on yours. I will say this: when I travel to Chicago, which is not often, but when I do, I always do have to go get pizza. But you can't find slices because I don't think they cut that big deep dish pizza into slices, right? So you have to get a whole pizza.
Yeah, for the
In
deep
New
dish, you're
York,
typically buying a whole
you can get a
pizza.
slice anywhere you want.
But we have good thin pizza too. All right, we're
Okay,
just you know what? I still like you, but we're just gonna have to agree to disagree on this one.
I agree. I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
we won't break
Do you
bread
want to know my
together.
favorite type of pizza though? Like, so it's white pizza with a big glob of ricotta on top of it.
Okay, see, now I like you better just because of the way you said "briccata." You earned a couple points back. We're good, David. I don't care what you eat. We're good. We're good. All right, I lied. There is one more question because I love to end the podcast this way. What was
Okay.
your favorite thing about doing the podcast?
Oh gosh, you're so easy to talk to. Like I felt like this was such a conversation. Like you and I could hang out, probably have a bottle of wine and keep talking. I mean, yeah, I mean, so easy to talk to, and you made this very fun to actually get through. So yes, I would come back anytime, by the
I am
way.
so glad. All right, what kind of bottle of wine are we sharing? Let's see if we can get it right.
I'm a Chardonnay guy.
Oh, David, you're killing me.
Now in the summer, I don't drink I drink Chardonnay, but I drink rosé. Are you red? Are you a red girl?
I'm red or like a sweet wine, and I love like a tawny or a port after dinner.
too heavy. Well, you know what? Then we used to have our own bottle.
I
That would
was
be
going
a
to say,
night.
which actually makes it even better.
Then we don't have to share. There
We
you
can
go.
share without sharing, right? We'll share stories. We won't share wine.
There you go. I love that. Yeah. Are
I
you
love
a
that too.
bubbles
See,
person? Are you a bubbles?
well,
Like Prosecco or
no,
no?
not
Okay.
not
All right.
no,
Then never
not
mind.
not. I'm a flat water, not a bubbly
Okay.
water. Yeah, I'm a flat girl. You know what? You know what? We just made the point though, right? This is the true gift in the podcast today is we can love different things and have different opinions and still sit in the same room and enjoy each other. And if you guys aren't doing that as my listeners, stop it and go do it. All right, get the
Yeah.
bottle of rosé and get the bottle of red or get the water. It doesn't make a difference. And let's break some bread together. David, you have been an absolute treat. Where can our listeners find you, follow you, check you out on LinkedIn? Give them all the goods.
Absolutely. So our website is a great place to go to for the company. So talentsmarteq.com. You can find me there. You can find anything about emotional intelligence. But also, if anybody is interested in contacting me, probably the easiest way is I'll give you my email address, which is david.b, as in boy, @talentsmart.com. And yeah, happy to, anybody who's interested in emotional intelligence or some of the work that I do, that's the best place for people to find me.
I absolutely love it. So if you guys want to find more about me, check me out at drsindyspeaks.com. If you're interested in having me speak or joining my community, you can find all the information there. Please check out my book, Positively Altered: Finding Happiness at the Bottom of a Chemo Bag on Amazon. You can buy it in hardcover, softcover, or listen to me speak it to you while you're gently falling asleep for 7 hours in the evening. That would be great. I will let everybody know out there that my favorite thing about the podcast, besides always great conversation, and David, it's been a pleasure to get to know you better, is here's the deal. I actually think I'm pretty emotionally intelligent, but here's the cool thing. I'm not done. And I still got a lot to learn to keep working on that. And I love bringing in these conversations to know that no matter where we think we are in this journey, we're never done. There's still something else to be learned and something else to be shared. So I hope today, our time together, David, left all of our listeners positively altered.